Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Property Management 101, and for today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you 4 ways that you can help build trust with your teams. This video will apply best for any property managers, but there'll also be some crossover for anyone that supervises others in the property management industry. This video will work well with regional managers, maintenance supervisors, leasing managers that may be supervising leasing consultants or leasing agents. So anyone that may be supervising others, this video will be helpful. A lot of the points, principles, and examples we'll be talking about today will really be geared towards a property manager. For those property managers, when you're trying to build trust in a team, there could be a lot of examples of maybe why this is the dynamic you're seeking. It could be a situation where maybe you're a new property manager, or maybe you're a new manager to that particular property or that particular team, or it could be an example that your company acquired the property and you're going to be working with a new team at a new property. So these are common examples where you really want to establish that trust and that credibility early on as quickly as possible to really make sure everyone's on the same page. Now, here are 4 practices I would keep in mind when you're trying to build trust with your team. Number 1, you really want to make sure you're sharing the strategy, your standards, and your goals for that particular asset or portfolios with your team. Sharing this often will be really important as well. I would also make sure that you're sharing these as early as possible as well. I would recommend sharing these during the interview process. Also, staff meetings, individual employee reviews, one-on-one meeting, during the training of new employees. If you and your team are not on the same page when it comes to the strategy, the goals of the property or portfolio, and your standards as a property manager, it's going to be really hard to build trust within that team. The second best practice that you want to keep in mind that will help you build trust with your teams is you want to set a good example. There's going to be leadership moments throughout the time that you spend there working with your teams that you really want to capitalize on by setting that good example of what you expect and what your standard is as the leader of that team. Now, you may not have many of these opportunities, so it'll be really important that you recognize these opportunities when they come up. I think it'll be helpful that I can share with you a personal experience that I had in my experience as a property manager that may be helpful on this particular practice. So one time when we had a scheduled move-in, it was a 1-bedroom, it was a smaller unit. It was a young female with her child. This resident was scheduled to move in the day before Thanksgiving, and they were expected to arrive shortly before we closed. One of the staff members took the keys and just double-checked to make sure they were working at the unit. And when they went to the unit, they actually found that this unit was unfortunately missed. It was not cleaned, and it was one step of our move-in process that was accidentally skipped over. So unfortunately, this unit was not ready, and this person was scheduled to move in very soon. Unfortunately, knowing that my staff was going to have to possibly stay after later, the day before Thanksgiving, I just simply elected, hey, I'm going to stay and I'm going to clean the unit for them. It may take me a little bit, but at the very least, and this is a situation where at the very least, the resident will still be able to move in into a clean unit before a holiday weekend. So I grabbed some cleaning supplies and headed to the unit. And I told the employees, I gave them some money to give this resident some money to possibly head out, get something to eat, give us some time to clean the unit. Well, I told the employees that they could leave shortly after we closed as long as that the resident knows, hey, I'll come out and I'll give her the keys once the unit is ready. Lucky for me as the property manager, the staff took it upon themselves to come back and help me kind of get this unit ready so that resident wasn't waiting nearly as long. And to me, this was a great way that I was able to set an example of the standard and service we need to provide to them as a future resident, and they took it upon themselves to kind of meet me at the standard and the effort that I was performing and setting as that example. When you have opportunities like this, it'll be really important for you to really set that bar high as far as what your standard is and what you expect of your employees when you are setting that example. This is an indirect way of training them and reestablishing that standard as well. If you're enjoying this video and you're learning something new, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future videos. The third best practice I would highly recommend when it comes to building that trust with your teams is you want to host regular meetings. Now, I'm not just talking about entire staff meetings. I'm talking about when it comes to maybe work functions inside or outside the office. Maybe it's lunches or dinners. Maybe it's with staff as an entire team or a partial team. Maybe it's just with your maintenance team, or maybe it's just with your office team, or a one-on-one team member meeting. So this is going to be really important to host these types of meetings on a regular basis. This gives you the opportunity to reestablish your expectations and goals and strategy. This will also help continue trust to be built when it comes to your team dynamic. And this will also give them the opportunity to speak up if they are noticing things that they need to address or they feel they need to address as an entire team. By having these meetings, it'll be really important to ensure that you're consistently all on the same page. And the last best practice that I would recommend to you to help you build trust with your teams is to delegate. If you think about it from this perspective, if you're expecting your employees to trust you and to build trust within the team, but you don't show that you can trust them by not delegating things to them, then you can't really expect that trust in return. If you don't trust your employees, they're not going to trust you or others. Once your employees are hired, they're trained, and you've shared your standards with them, and you've allowed them the opportunity to perform their job without your assistance, this is where you're going to want to start to possibly delegate things to them or really allow them to stand on their own and perform the actions that they were hired to do as per their job description. This will really help them trust you, that you are trusting them, and it's going to be a mutual relationship and dynamic when it comes to that trust element. And if they can start to trust you as their supervisor, they're going to start to also indirectly build trust with others on the team as well. And for a bonus tip today, one thing I would highly recommend that will also help you build trust with your teams is you want to get to know your staff. So you don't always want to have conversations with your staff when it comes to professional aspects. Obviously, this is going to dominate most of the conversations, but you do want to have a genuine interest on their personal side as well. Maybe about their family dynamic, maybe about pets they have, maybe about time off that they're taking, and maybe where they're going, maybe some of their interests and hobbies. You really want to get to know your staff because this will also really help you as far as building that trust aspect. And if you get to know them on a personal side, it's going to be a dynamic will be easier to have those conversations, and there'll be more of a mutual respect there when it comes to relationships you have with your team. And for a video recap today, keep in mind these 4 practices that'll help you as a property manager or another supervisor to build trust with your teams in the property management industry. First, it's really important for you to share your standards, your goals, and the strategy of the portfolio or the property with your team members. This is going to be really important to make sure everyone's on the same page and working towards the same thing. It's going to be very hard to build trust within that team or with you as the supervisor if not everyone's on the same page. Number 2, when you have opportunities as our supervisor to set that example, really set that bar and standard, you really want to capitalize on this and really make sure your team knows when you're performing an action, what level they should be performing that same action on. This is a great way to indirectly train your employees by seeing you perform that job that you expect them to do. Number 3, host regular meetings. This is great to give everyone the opportunity to speak up and address things as things come up. This is a dynamic that will definitely build trust within your teams to enforce that communication, but also you want to make sure it's regular meetings. They're going to be able to expect these things and they can prepare for these things. And I wouldn't just have regular staff meetings. I would have one-on-one meetings. I would have meetings maybe inside the office, outside the office. I would also maybe host some staff outings, whether it be staff outings during work hours, maybe at lunch or after hours, maybe at a dinner. So these are some things to keep in mind to also build trust within your teams. And number 4, delegate. Once an employee is hired, trained, and you've established what your expectations, strategies, and goals are for them, that you give them the opportunity to start performing their job and delegate things to them. This is going to be really important because it's going to be hard for you to build trust with that employee and them to build trust with you if you are not delegating things and trusting them to perform those actions that you hired them for. And the last dynamic that I want to mention for the video recap is keep in mind the bonus tip as far as getting to know your team. You do want to have an interest as far as what they have going on outside of work. Maybe it's about family, maybe it's about pets or hobbies. You want to ask about these things and get to know these things about your staff as well. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something new, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future videos. Before putting any of these practices into place, please watch our updated disclosure video as well as our updated why we do this video, which is the channel's why. And I'll be providing a link to both of those in the video description. And to stay on top of industry news, polls, and video releases, please feel free to connect with our LinkedIn and our Instagram page. If you have any questions about this video or any of our videos, feel free to leave a comment. I'll be happy to address it for you. Happy leasing!